Okay, good.
All right, and the recording has started, and it's really a pleasure. I was telling Darius just before you all got on that his title, "Remembering Who You Are," is so significantly appropriate for our times. And it's
Mhm.
always been the old saying, "Know thyself," but his work is something that is really for our time. So, without any other further introduction, uh, Darius, it's all yours.
All right. Well, appreciate you. So yes, this is welcome to my book commercial. I mean, my research, my research. Um, yes, remember who you are, reclaiming your narrative from popular entertainment culture. And so, this has been years of experience that I've drawn from. And I want to thank my advisor, Ferreros, my mentor and my chair, as well as Dr. Hennison and the other doctors on my committee, as well as my student reader. Appreciate all the love and the family and all the support. All right. So, first question, why this project? Well, essentially, um, it grows out of that. And excuse me, as I've been dealing with some congestion here. So I guess I'm going to cough my way through it. I've been looking at the question or questions that orbit around the idea of the loss of your own personal narrative, the concept I call personal narrative hijack. So how our identities become distorted through pervasive cultural messaging. And so we have entertainment media um, that produces messaging. We have the public education systems. We have generational disconnect. And so this is really about how to really reclaim that knowledge that is stolen away from us by all of these different things. Um, where I noticed that there were gaps in the knowledge in my research. I was looking at a lot of the literature, and not even just in the literature, but also in our professional paradigms, where there are assessments and things that attempt to give you a narrative to frame you, but they often don't fit. So I found that there's abundance of literature on self-actualization in particular. Um, so we talk about narrative theory, we talk about somatics, how our bodies store and express experiences, and the cultural pedagogy, the teaching methodology that represents all of this. And so there's a Abraham Maslow as a represented, especially these days, represented through the work of Scott Barry Kaufman and others, talk about human potential and the ability to basically live the fullness or experience the fulfillment. I am being truly who I am. I'm fulfilled in what it is that I do and how I am, not just what I do, but also who I am. So not just human doing, but a human being. And so in the literature, and all of the research that I've seen, and even in our discourse, there seems to be a disconnect between how the media and the storytelling tools. There's a disconnect between that and how it really is in our bodily experience, in our bodily experience. And so most models like Maslow's and others are rooted in Western individualistic frameworks. They don't account for systemic racism, colonial legacies, cultural dissonance. Works by Wilkerson and Michelle Alexander, and Isabel Wilkerson. They stop short of kind of connecting to the structural harm to personal narrative loss while they address it on a systemic level and on a larger political level. So my dissertation fills that gap by positioning personal narrative hijack as both systemic and somatic. It offers a narrative model of identity disruption and a pathway for recovery rooted in cultural relevance, body wisdom, and story sovereignty. And so, again, introducing personal narrative hijacking as a societal and somatic phenomenon, serving as a theory, a framework, and a catalyst for action, challenging researchers to examine how individuals become authors of their own lives beyond achievement metrics. So in framing the question, we're looking at how can people overcome barriers to their personal growth created by mainstream media? How do stories and media shape what people believe and value? How can people take back control of their personal growth despite media influence? What makes media so powerful in shaping how we think? Barriers to solutions. I'm looking at how people can overcome barriers to personal growth created by mainstream medias in places like the United States in particular. I studied what it looks like on that level. Some of my theoretical anchors, self-actualization, of course, Maslow, Kaufman, narrative identity, somatics, culturally responsive pedagogy. And so my research is building on all of these different ideas. And I like to say I've added something to Maslow's work, noting its roots in the Sikh or the Blackfeet teachings, where when Maslow went off and studied during that summer and came back to the United States with an experience of what self-actualization looks like, it was rather different because in that society, when he stayed with them, most people were self-actualized, and they were born self-actualized. And so when coming back to America, and what the research tells us is that most people don't have that experience of self-actualization. So the question is, why not? When we look at the indigenous way of being, there's something that we can take from that, which is what Maslow actually did. And of course, that became represented in a hierarchy of needs, which he never created, but actually was hijacked. And that was a theme that kind of ran throughout all of this. The ideas continue to be, you find that there's hijack in all of this. So in expanding the field, we're looking at, of course, DEI, CRT, mythic templates. When we talk about storytelling and what are the models and the things that we use for storytelling, the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell's work. And we also include the heroine's journey because of the feminist response and really accounting for what was missing from that perspective, to say, hey, this accounts for only part of the story, but not the whole experience, what it would look like for women. But even in both of those, how it exists today and in Hollywood, especially, the main method of way we experience stories, that hero's journey is definitely evidence. But again, I bring up that term of being hijacked because it doesn't exist, and it doesn't in the same way in which it was originally designed. So again, we see that theme of hijacking. It starts off one way, but then it changes. Just like some of these other terms, diversity or equity or inclusion, or if you put them all together in DEI or critical race theory, a lot of times when people talk about these things in our popular culture, they're not saying the same things that, were a part of what framed those concepts to begin with. So this study doesn't replace work on social justice, but it builds upon it by creating new ways to identify and heal personal stories that have been damaged. So again, we see that there is that distinction, and that was really what was paramount to opening the door into this space, is to see that contrast between the Western and the indigenous paradigms. In the Western psychology, in the Western worldview, and you look at the works of Maslow and Carl Jung and others, and they talk about individuation and self-actualization, and in how that's represented in our culture. It's earned through achievement. It's a hierarchy. It's a pyramid. Some would say a pyramid scheme. It's individualistic. It focuses on personal progress. It's linear. It's step-by-step development. If you don't have this, you can't have that. And again, when Maslow's concept was broadened it was brought in the corporate or in the business world. So of course, that makes sense how it would exist there. However, in the indigenous worldview, self is inherently complete from birth. It is not a pyramid, and it's actually, it would be flipped if it were to be slightly modified to going back towards its original roots. But as you see, there's a circle that's present in this image. It's more of it's not a pyramid, it's a circle. It's a continuous on engagement. We say things like circle of life, circle of trust, or these kinds of things. Even in the narratology of the hero, the mythology, or the monomyth of Joseph Campbell, there's a circle, there's a cycle to these things, right? Cyclical patterns of growth. And it begins with an innate wholeness. So it was really interesting to go and dig up in this information because it's not widely distributed. I dug through the recesses, as it would seem, of the internet and journals and everything. And you know, I found some scholars and some indigenous scholars and some actual Siksika scholars who were able to really speak from the real lived experience of you know, what these concepts were like in their origin or in their original state. And so definitely when you are able to look at my work as a, you know, and published, you know, that bibliography is going to be a wonderful journey for you all. You'll have fun with it like I did. So again, in the literature, we're looking at narrative identity. Western views of identity focus on individuals, and they ignore the social barriers, the structural analysis that shows racism exists, but doesn't explain how systems affect our personal stories. And so again, we're caught up in these movements, and it's even reflected in like how we have our conversations. It seems like there's the extremities, you're of this party or that party, or left or right, or what have you, and all of the nuance and all of the divergent ideas that gets lost in the blender. And trauma research, it shows how trauma lives in the body, but it doesn't link this to stories shaped by media, or as you know, we experience life mentally, emotionally, and physically, but often when it comes to addressing any ailments or doing any of these things, there's a separation, as if we are a car, and if you just change the tire, it won't affect the air conditioning. So the holistic or the embodied approach is really what it is that is missing, and is there's an opportunity there for us to continue to do work in that area. And so as a conceptual diagram, I present the narrative identity. The media culture shows us who to be. The narrative identity shows us who we are. The somatic experience stores what the mind forgets. Bessel van der Kolk has you know, his book was of note. The body keeps the score. So again, talking about how our bodies are remembering, just like our emotional experience has its own life of itself. You know, emotions don't listen to logic. In our minds, you know, we have unlimited potential in our minds, seemingly, but limited capacity in our bodies, and seemingly in our emotions at times. And so the approach was autoethnography. Phenomenology was very much a way in which cemented this for me. The study of lived experience, not theories, but what does it mean to actually experience this from a holistic perspective, not just telling the story, but observing it and distilling the essence of what that experience is like. And again, somatics, which is where that would show up. How does that show up in your body, essentially? And so an autoethnography, looking at my own experience as a part of a culture, a subculture, which is a part of a larger culture that is experiencing this phenomenon. And I think that more stories like this, or I say stories, meaning more ways of explaining or sharing the research like this, is what it is that we need as people relating to people. So it took a while for me to dig in using these frameworks. I did a lot of journaling, a lot of somatic exercises, a lot of mindful awareness exercises. I distilled it into a very specific point in time where I looked at this essence and distilled this essence and continue to refine it and continue to reflect and using research based methodologies to get to the essence and really get rid of, to purify, get all the other elements out, to remove the dross from it. So, okay, well, let's go back and revisit that again and get away from interpretations as much as we're talking about the essence versus the story told by that data that is observed. And of course, having gone through the rigor of being in the institution, having my chair and my committee members, as well as peers. Some of you who are on this call, you've been a part of the research as well. You've been a part of the conversation. And so the process, of course, this is a qualitative research approach. So what emerged as best for what I was doing was thematic coding and semantic mapping to look at patterns and to see really what could be told by the story that showed up. So journaling, again, looking at the body, and again, looking at the whole person approach. And I actually distilled and created a research instrument that I could use on myself. And I often would joke with my wife and others that, I'm getting on the table and I'm about to flip the switch, and it going and digging into my personal life and my lived experience. A lot of people don't do that kind of work. They might touch it with coaching, or some people might even indulge in therapy, but to kind of go in and as a research subject, it was an uncomfortable experience. But what I was able to come away with was something of value, and I think I have something of value that I can offer for others, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And so when we talk about doing autoethnography or talking about your lived experience, of course, there's, the questions of how scholarly this is, right? There's that, again, we look at Western paradigms of knowledge, Western ways of knowing that are very much walls and buildings and papers and computers and processes and things of that nature. And not, as the young people would say now, like touching grass and things of that nature. And so reflexivity and what the research tells us in this area of autoethnography and in the area of doing qualitative study and how to ensure that there's rigor there, because when you say telling stories, a lot of people think automatically fiction or entertainment versus what it is that is also a part of could be described as telling stories. Data tells stories. So again, having people that I'm speaking with outside of myself, again, utilizing the resources provided by the university and primarily in the form of my committee. And so when it comes to the method, the contributions regarding methodology, there's this idea of personal narrative hijacking, this approach to autoethnography that integrates bodily experience, justice concerns, cultural awareness, using self as data. There's a way in which I did it that I can share, and that is documented in the dissertation, and will be documented again and again in articles and other work that I will do in collaboration with others to refine it, utilizing the processes that are available to us and processes that we are yet to discover, and being open to that. As it relates to the outcomes, there were 10 themes that engaging in this study emerged. Narrative reclamation, of course, as the title of the dissertation, that's the overarching umbrella concept. Embodied insight is with that. And specifically within the experience or the phenomenon of my own life, I was able to come away with 10 things using the coding and the methodology practice that I highlighted in the dissertation. Um, and so the key findings is that personal narrative hijacking happens both within systems and within our bodies, and it works well below our awareness and across generations. So it's beneath the radar or in the subconscious, to use or the the language kind of Jung and others. And so again, the work that I'm doing is not a repudiation of Carl Jung or Maslow or any of these that I critique. It's more so to be in conversation because of the limitations of what was present in the things that they studied, which those the work that they contributed and the work that other scholars in this field contribute, it's all part of a story. And that's really what I'm highlighting, is that we need these stories to continue to understand and to deepen our understanding of what it means to be essentially a human on the planet. And so to limit it to a Western or either this or that sort of paradigm, again, in an indigenous worldview, and even in Eastern concepts, is not a dichotomy. It's not an either or. It's not a fallacy of that nature. And so this work shows that reclaiming our stories isn't just a mental process. It's physical, it's spiritual, it's communal. To reclaim your story means facing false images, learned scripts, and inner silencing. Is both personal healing, and it's actually an act of standing up for yourself. It's a courageous act. Um, it's communal. Again, it's not individual. And this is where, other works really focus in on, in other mythologies like the American dream or rugged individualism or pull yourself up by your bootstraps or individuation, all these kind of concepts, or, you go off and do it by yourself. And, the research is continuing to bear out when we talk about mental health, and or however the terms, whatever the terms are that we use, literacy, emotional literacy, cultural literacy, awareness. Knowing yourself is often in the context of community. We used to say reclaiming the village in a community I was a part of, and that comes from this thing that was said, that it takes a village to raise a child. And so the question I pose is, what happens to that child when they grow up and the village is no more, because the village is at work, or the village is, so on and so forth. And so the logic model, the 10 themes, we talk about the reclamation of the narrative, the barriers and then the external influences, the early educational experiences, guidance and mentorship, pivotal moments of narrative reclamation. So throughout all of the work that I was doing in my research, these things emerged as ways of kind of codifying what those experiences were in the phenomenon of the personal narrative hijack, how it grew with me as I grew throughout my life, even to present day. Again, pointing at guidance and mentorship and how pivotal that is as a part of the community, to giving voice to a narrative and understanding of self and understanding of others. School is a huge voice. And again, there are moments in which this emerges, this narrative reclamation, this breakthrough that disrupts that hijack story. And so really what it is that I'm looking at in is a transferable framework that can inform coaching, people working with others, other people, curriculum design, formally DEI strategy, whatever this administration or the next will say. I often say that it's not educators that make legislation, it's politicians. So as educators and as people who do the work, we'll find a way to do the work. We've been doing the work. It's just whatever acronyms or letters, acrostics, what have you, that'll show up. This is a thing that endures. So when we talk about personal narrative hijacking as a new framework that fills a gap, we're looking at what has been, and it's interesting, like when you look at the two major concepts or frameworks that are present here, DEI, critical race theory, they've been rather powerful in our culture and rather loud. The megaphone and the microphone have been in the hands of people who have said very loudly certain things, right? And what is a test to their ability to endure or to even be challenged is the where they're missing it, and that's kind of what I spoke about earlier, right? So the individual and that individual story, right, is one thing to look at the community and lose sense of self, or lose sense of what is happening to those individual people. And you know, it's been said in places like war and voting, and when you see a mass, you lose sense of the human. You know, they say the forest for the trees or that sort of thing, or the tree for the forest. You know, it becomes blurred. And so you know, when you look at like DEI, it's not identity specific or personally embodied, right? And so it's easy to hijack a thing when it's a concept, because it's a concept. It's not a real. It's not a real. It's not a story that I can touch or taste or feel. And so there's a disconnect. And so when we look at what it is that I'm offering, is that it's grounded, it's embodied, and it's a little harder to malign or to push away, because you're actually pushing away a person and their lived experience, and lived experiences can't be argued with. Nobody can tell you how you feel, right? And emotions are valid, they are real. And so you know, that's one aspect of our existence. And so that's different from these kind of concepts that attempt to intellectually ascend to certain heights. They could easily be knocked down. Practically, I've I've designed a couple of different things, one of which is a narrative audit tool. And that is really, these are things to assist consultants, coaches, educators, people who work with people, people who lead people in that the thing that you can experience at any time, which is being who you are in that moment, um, and being aware of making that choice and the choices that you have and the options that you have. So we talk about like noticing your breathing pattern when the story comes up, choosing a new truth to live by this week. You know, so there's many aspects and elements of what it is that we can do when we do this kind of work. And I say we intentionally, meaning that I'm doing this work, and those of you who are on this call and others that I will continue to engage with, there's expansion of this work. And again, that's reflective of what I've learned from the indigenous kind of expression and Eastern expression of knowledge. It's not something that you own and you colonize, you know, and it's like, well, this is mine. It's like, no, this is not ours. Like we are, you know, we come from the earth and we go back to the earth, and then somebody else will be here. So I own the land, or the land owns me, like really challenging that. So you know, again, that's I'm definitely looking forward to how that will continue to evolve and develop. I kind of spoke on this already, you know, the gaps in the literature again. So when we talk about CRT and DEI, how they work to help us understand external systems, my research tackles the internalized oppression, how that voice becomes indistinguishable, and how even the narrative of victim, or you know, certain archetypes, to borrow Jung's terminology, you know, why do I have that judge, or why do I have that victim, or why is that so pervasive? You know, to really question that. How does that help me? How does that hinder me? And so we talk about personal narrative hijacking. We're looking at a body story method for self-recovery and creating a link between the research and real life, between system criticism and personal growth. And so again, what I'm looking at, one of the things that I'm codifying, that narrative audit, is a practical coaching teaching tool, turning the research into change for leaders, teachers, practitioners, and other earthers, surface dwellers. My future plans, of course, is turning this research into a readable book. I've done what I could in this presentation to have conversation with you all, and not to get too much into the academic weeds. And though I definitely invite that, the idea is for this not to live and grow and die and come back from the death with the gray dusty beard on a shelf somewhere. I want this book to be in people's hands, and I want these concepts to be in people's lived experience, in that sense of awareness of it, right? Because I don't think I've uncovered something that you all haven't uncovered or haven't been aware of at some point. Is really just pointing at it and looking at what are the things that actively suppress that, is what we're talking about. So workshops, teaching materials, training programs. And so that's what, we're looking at. What I've learned in this process is that scholarship is, it can be a spiritual practice. And often people don't think about scholarship as a spiritual practice unless they're talking theology. But back in the day, theology was considered the crown of the arts. And so, for myself, definitely, and this is again, looking at Indigenous and Eastern perspectives, it doesn't delineate or separate or alienate, or I'm thinking of the negative word that says that that's a bad thing over there, right? But it says like, no, this is spirit is real, and spirit has something to contribute to our knowledge if we would look to it, right? To our natural experience. I had to face personal hurts and stories. I was taught to keep quiet in order to write honestly. That was challenging, even in the as a writer. I've learned about myself as a writer, as a reader, as a thinker. Um, so many things. And so this is just a snapshot of some of the things that I have learned. Good research doesn't mean hiding your feelings. Being open and clear. Um, they, they can be present. Transparency is a word that I would use to encapsulate that. So what I'm learning about myself as an educator, bringing all parts of identity into teaching. As a poet, using creative expression for healing. As a father, legacy, passing down, right? As a scholar, integrating. Yeah, I'm not a collection of separate roles, but a whole person with an evolving story. And so compartmentalization, I've been learning more about how to integrate and how to synthesize. Healing isn't linear. Silence represents not just the absence of voice, but the stories left untold. So my silence began in childhood through exclusion, denied opportunities, having my intelligence mislabeled as disruption. Through this work, I've reclaimed and interrupted these narratives as opportunities for self-authorship. And that has been the story of my liberation for personal, revolution, I believe, starts within. And so, you know, to be able to name, to label, to acknowledge, to have agency, to share, to engage with others, to live a script where I feel like I have the pen, and the pen is not in somebody else's hand solely. In the field, we talk about liberation literacies, when we talk about, again, the frameworks that we mentioned earlier. I've really distilled differences between these established frameworks and my emergent approach. And so there's an offering of language, there's an offering of a framework, and there's an offering of practical tools. And it's been in my experience of coaching, working with clients, in my experience as a teacher, as a father, as a person, starting with myself, applying this to myself and my own awareness, that, it works. It works. It's alive, said Frankenstein. And so another visual, kind of played around with this, this death by PowerPoint concept. I'm not really a fan of them, but I did something here with this one. So anyway, disruption, again, you see the representative of that circle, right? Again, that goes to, what Joseph Campbell studied and looked at when he looked at mythologies and theologies. And, there's the morning, there's the afternoon, there's the evening, there's night, there's spring, there's summer, there's autumn, there's winter, there's you're born, there's you suffer and then you die. Well, I mean, there's other stuff there too, but we resist the suffering or we do something about it. And so, again, there's more of a this circle. It represents. It continues to find. I continue to find it in things that resonate with me, even with like yin yang or other things, versus a pyramid, right, or a hierarchy, or things of that nature, right, which is what these terms have. You look at our systems, our Western systems. They're built to look like that, and so or they fit that kind of framework. The one at the top and the many at the bottom. The self-actualization is here after you have all these other things at the back. Again, they're by design, and by, I would say, ecosystem. When we think about systems and how systems function, oh yeah, it makes sense that in America there would be this narrative that says, that it fits the things that we have as values. Like, again, surfacing those myths, manifest destination, American dream, etc., so on and so forth. And so disruption, after that hijack, right? Disruption, the experience of what that looks like, reflection, resistance, reclamation, integration, and the idea that this is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time linear, concept, right? It's not linear. Like the stages of grief. For some reason or other, the anger visits me, and then at some point in time in the future, the denial visits me. We don't go through these stages and then we're done with them. And so this research began as a personal and scholarly exploration of this term that seemed to fit. Again, we look at our entertainment, our educational systems, our cultural institutions, and they're very loud and they're very influential. And so, again, this is about pointing awareness to what that is and what those messages are, and beginning to critique those. And it extends its way to a kind of critical thinking, something that is very much needed in our days and in our times, when we look at what administrations do and what conspiracies exist. And this doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense for somebody. If somebody benefits, and that is a question that we often don't ask: who benefits from this? When we say it's broken, we really should say, who benefits from this brokenness? And so again, that framework of questioning. And so I appreciate you all. And again, I invite you to engage with me in this. And I appreciate you for your engagement this evening as I've talked and as I've spoken. And we don't just become who we are, we remember. That's the soul of this work: to recover what systems tried to erase, to reclaim what trauma tried to silence, and to write new stories together. I appreciate you all.
Well, I don't think it was a slip of the tongue when you divined instead of designed.
Yeah.
And I think 40, more than 40 people that are here, it kind of had the idea that would happen with your brilliant presentation that is so timely for where we are in the world. So I'd like to start with the committee to make their comments or questions, and I don't think of this as a defense. I think of this as an offering that you gave. And so we'll start with your research faculty, Dr. Henderson, and then your reader, Dr. Kitty Epstein. And then I don't see Dr. Scruggs, but if she's here, then she's your research faculty.
Yeah, he's not he wasn't able to attend.
Okay,
Obviously. Mhm.
Your
Michael is there. Dr. Rothman.
Michael Rothman. Yeah, good, good.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so Lanil, it's all yours, sir.
First of all, I'd like to applaud and affirm what you have done and how you've done it, and celebrate you. I think Four Arrows is right. This is an offering, but it's also a celebration of the journey to this point. And we look forward to your postdoctoral work. I think one of the things that happens is that this is so deep and profound and complex in many ways that we, in the presentation, probably lost a sense of how one does this, what the methodology is of integrating all these dynamics into the remembering process. To Campbell, Joseph Campbell in particular, I think you're right about his being somewhat misogynist in the way he comes at the hero and the hero's journey, and also just general observations about mythology. But I also think that I want to lift up, I hope you'll do this in your postdoctoral work, the role of children and youth, because it's my view that it takes a child to raise a village.
Mm. Yeah.
And we become who we are as adults largely because we take seriously, when we do, the responsibility of raising our young people, and they actually help raise us in that sense. So that dimension is important because it connects to your themes of reclamation and also to the theme of the connecting themes of systemic dynamics and somatic dynamics, right? And the reason I mentioned the somatic is that the child always visually is smaller than we are, but systematically they're bigger than we are. And so, I would just want to lift that up as a possibility. I also like the language that you use. You're a true poet, and that comes across in many facets of your work. And one of the problems that we have in the literature is that many of our writers in the literature are not as clear or poetic as you are. And so there are all kinds of things you can misinterpret from what they're saying, But you have that poetic gift, and it really does come through. So I'm really just ecstatic about the quality of the work, the dynamics of the work, the future of the work that you're engaged in. And as they said in the play Hamilton, we want to be in the rooms where it happens, and where it's going to happen for you, because we have enjoyed watching you and working with you evolve to this point. So congratulations. Really ecstatic about what you've done, and look forward to engaging further.
Appreciate you, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Dr. Epstein, reader.
We ask students when they are begin preparing for their doctorate to make a contribution. And I think for a lot of people, that is very daunting and perhaps not even understandable, since that isn't what our education is about, is making contributions. It's about learning other people, what other people have to say. And I think in your case that you actually have made a unique contribution. And part of the reason is your own knowledge and awareness and thoughtfulness. And also you dug enough into the literature. It's very impressive how many authors you are able to cite and what their contributions are. And so that makes you able to make a contribution yourself. And I think that's very impressive. And I know we all hope to do that as we write our dissertations, but I'm not sure we all achieve it. So I think you really have. And that's a wonderful thing. And just on the practical level, there are a lot of insights in your work, but on the practical level, one of the best pieces of advice that comes out of it is to bring your whole self to teaching and parenting and all the other activities in life. And I think that's hard to do, but I think it's the only way to have a happy life, basically, is to actually figure out what your whole self is and then be sure that it gets to all your activities. Otherwise, otherwise we're all living in internal conflict all the time. So it's a beautiful thing. I do have a question. It's probably, it might be such a long topic that, but anyway, I just want to raise it.
Yeah.
I wonder if, the world has changed quite a bit in the last couple of months, not just politically, but actually, I think the world has changed a lot. And there's a lot to be said about that, all the negatives, but there's also the fact that, maybe people in the global South are getting a chance to be away from the monopoly of U.S. determination of everything that happens. Anyway, I wonder if, so the question is there any way that things that have been happening in the last few months affect your work, either in terms of how you see your work, what you intend to do with it, any new insights, or anything you're thinking about that's related to that?
Yeah. So there are many, many doors into the very large hall of this, what you're talking about. And I'll pick one door to be brief, right? So we talk about the terms of like DEI or mental health or this list that's come from the Trump administration of, don't say that, and the chilling effect that has. And so, that's one, right? Again, we talk about the whole holistic experience as an educator, that fear that's so pervasive in places like in Texas where I am, where testing is it has a physical impact and an emotional impact and a mental impact. And again, we can't isolate those and only work on one and neglect the others. We have to bring that whole self. And so, I'll cite from that list that didn't make it here, but as you say, because I have all of the library in my brain, but it is the poet philosopher Andre 3000, Three Stacks. A number of years ago, they did one of my favorite movies, Outkast, the rap group Outkast. They did a movie called Idlewild, and on that soundtrack, they had this song called Hollywood Divorce. And in that, they really elucidated the idea of contributions to culture from Americans, right? And in particular, Black or African Americans. In that instance, they were referencing the music. It goes to Hollywood and it gets hijacked, and so it's ubiquitous. And so what he says is, all the things that we did, it just go to Hollywood and it becomes something else. Lil Wayne was on there. He said Lil Wayne, but in Hollywood it's Little Wayne. It don't make me none. That's why I got a prenup. I'm done. Got a prenuptial agreement. So they really play upon this concept of, you offering something and it gets taken away, and all the ways in which it can be taken away. And so what Three Stacks says is, we'll just keep it going and make new. And I agree. I didn't say the last word, new things. So we just make something else. You take that? Okay. All right. It was called DEI. Oh, they call it Jedi. Oh, we'll call it something else.
Yeah.
And then when we die, 100 years
Yeah.
from now, people will be doing the work in other languages.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
we find a way to, as they say in American military, focus, adapt, overcome,
Yeah.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Michael.
Hey, Darius. This is great. Thank you for sharing the wisdom and the thought you put into this. A thought or two. One is that I think back to when we were starting this program and you're talking about self-actualization, and to hear how you're talking about it now and like what you put together and your thing around it. It's really thoughtful, powerful stuff. I was thinking about how if I'm remembering right, like you and I both done work with youth who are incarcerated.
Yes.
And something that I'll say as a question, not for you to answer now. I sort of wrote it to you before, but that's still in my head, is that this notion of personal narrative hijacking
Hmm.
that I understand from what you've written as this like back and forth between sort of being able to define yourself, but defining yourself happens in a community, and what happens when that community starts defining you in ways that
Right.
are not that narrative. And the thing that I heard you saying a little bit more about here than you'd written about, but I'm looking forward to you going even more in depth on it, is
Mhm.
you sort of laid out that framework. And I was like, now how do you use that? You were saying you're talking about like the worksheets, like how do you get to the place where like I'm again doing work with youth who are incarcerated, and I'm like, how do you how do you work with folks who have been in a position where that personal growth is being affected by the community, and they're in a community that's affecting them, and
Right.
give sort of those tools and that way of thinking about it. And I love that you have like explored that, and I just want more. I want
Yeah.
to see how you build it out further. So congratulations. I know it was a long time coming, and it's great work.
I appreciate you, man. We're gonna do some of that work together, and thought partner on some of this, because kind of briefly respond to that is ecosystems, right? Apple trees can't go everywhere, so you might be in one place, but that might not be the end. Again, by design, why does our incarceration, I think about Texas Tough and Robert Perkinson and Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow, and seemingly the world is influenced by things that come out of Texas, education with textbooks, but the prison, right, industry coming out of Texas, right? You pull the strings on these things, and it takes you to places, and not all those places are safe for your whole being, right? So it's a courageous act, and again, this is why a lot of people don't do it, because it's painful.
Well, Darius, Nishanti Atava Wogala Kin na Petrus Epela. I always have to say it in Lakota that I'm really going to be speaking from my heart. It's to see the kind of work that you've done at Fielding and its importance. Like Neil was talking about children, but really when you looked at the real truth that Maslow found when he was on
Right.
his internship,
Yeah.
was the child indeed. It's still, because the child is already coming from spirit, it's already there, and then it's up to the community to propagate. And so that was a really good point that Dr. Henderson made, that but you've got that foundation there if people understand it. Brought in the importance of bringing in spirit. That's not done in the academy often enough. I love your narrative audit, because it's the ability of people to really have a metacognitive experience has disappeared, and to be able to do that. And so I guess a couple of things that for your postdoctoral work,
Yes,
that I
sir.
want you to see to move into is, how does the concept of hypnosis, the concept of natural hypnosis, play into moving from the metacognitive, thinking about thinking and telling your story and remembering instead of knowing who you are, is so
Right.
and how does that automaticity of the natural hypnosis that I've learned from animals, how does that play into it? And then I think this concealment of the authentic self will emerge from both of those combined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of those combined.
Yeah.
I love also how your criticalness was married to, if you will, the authentic complementarity. As you criticized, these linear systems and et cetera, right away you brought in, but this is part of the story, and this understanding of this complementary duality of these conflicts. When we can get into that, then pretty soon we have a better chance of this narrative working. And
Yes,
so,
sir.
so the only thing that I guess for a question, because I just love what you've done, is aside from the hypnosis, what's very connected to that, Gandhi says it in one short sentence. He says a prerequisite for spirituality is fearlessness.
Mhm.
That fearlessness is considered foolishness in most of the linear systems that we have. Socrates said that, for example. Gandhi's really the only Western non-Indigenous person that understands that fear is a beautiful thing for about 2 seconds. And then from that fight or flight, it tells you whether to get
Right.
out of the way of a bus or not. But in
Right.
our age now, it goes on. And so once that word motion is an emotion, once that
Mhm.
happens, you're right about the courage that's needed. And it's honored in the traditional Indigenous ways.
Right. Yeah.
But you burn out with courage because it's still an emotion.
Mhm.
When you move into fearlessness, we really mean, okay, once I have the courage to make the decision about remembering who I am and acting accordingly, once I make the decision of my action,
Mhm.
I'm going to trust the universe. It's changing the idea of hope from the certainty of an outcome to the certainty that whatever I'm doing is the right thing to do, regardless of the outcome. So be thinking about how to move into your future research to be promoting that aspect of our Indigenous nature-based worldview. All right, so let's open it up to, you've got a lot of people here, and there's some brilliant, wonderful people that probably have beautiful comments for you, and maybe some questions also. So I'm just going to let it be a free for all, and just you don't have to raise your hand, just kind of jump in, and I think it'll work out that way.
Yeah. Take turns. I can only hear one at a time.
Who would like to go first?
Darius, I put a question in the chat early.
Okay.
And
Hey, Doc.
hi there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was wondering, what were some of the surprises that you experienced when you were doing your research?
I
Something
would
you
say
were not expecting, maybe.
that was like that experience. I often say like surprise and shock, right? So shock in the physical sensation, right? Kind of going to that into that direction. Really and really and just before I continue to answer this, I appreciate you, Dr. Mink. Dr. Mink was the door by which I entered fielding moons ago. And some of us, I see some of my classmates, some of my mates here. But we did an exercise and an orientation, and it was really like a gotcha kind of thing. Like you become a doctor, right? This idea, right? And like there's validity to what it is that you have to say. And and it was said earlier, like I have and I have friends here, so they know I have a lot of degrees, widely in things. And that's studying other people's ideas. And even when it came to like focusing in on a doctoral degree, like why even do that? And where would I focus? And what would I get from that? And so I was really surprised by the validation of the discovery that what I was going to look for, it was kind of there, like kind of speaking of what Forer was mentioning earlier. And I'll kind of say it this way, like when we used to take students to Boston on a Boston excursion, and we go in and we visit Walden Pond, and we talk about the rose concept. And really, in essence, it's, I went into the woods and I went into nature to find God. And I ended up finding myself, right? Or I went to go find myself and I ended up finding God, right? That complementary, that oneness, that kind of aspect of it. That really for me was that deep affirmation, and really how violent and how vicious systems of the world, and as we say in Christian language, right, the spiritual wickedness in the high places, like how powerful and ubiquitous these things are. And so for me, that was really the surprise and the learning. And again, I look at the hero's journey. It's like, oh, that's hijack. That's not what, the way I see it now is not what he meant. When we talk about self-actualization, what? That's not what that's not what he discovered. And like all the other frameworks that we kind of grab onto, is like, is everything a lie? You know, it's like everything is Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and all of that sort of thing.
Who else?
Thank you.
Darius, I want to
Oh, go ahead.
take a minute here and acknowledge the excellence that I just witnessed, and the addition of a Black voice to academe around these things, because it's such a gap in literature. It's a gap in our societal reading options. And the things that you brought forth in your presentation stirred my heart, stirred my soul, because it's speaking to something that has been sideswiped, or as you've appropriated it, have been hijacked. And I just want to honor you, man. This was outstanding. I hear so much alignment, and there's an emergent body of work, and you're in that body of work now. And I'm just so excited to see what you do next with this. So congratulations, man.
I appreciate you, sir. Yeah.
Chime in.
Look forward to working with you.
I want to chime in and just as an immediate family member,
Aw.
acknowledge all of the hard work and tenacity that you've put into this, and really appreciate the impact that your studies and your contribution to academia has had directly on our family, and how the work that you've been doing has impacted us. Yeah, Aaliyah says, "Hey, me too."
Yes. That's my baby. That's my wife, everybody.
And as the oldest child, I would also like to jump in as
Oh,
well
love the
and
baby.
say and say congratulations. And yes, like, we are very proud, and we have seen the hard work and dedication, the consistency, the things that and you put a lot of hard work and energy and effort into this, and it, you can see it, and it's really great what you've done, and excited to see what you'll do, and I know you're going to impact, even more people outside of our house. So yeah.
Thank you, love.
I want to jump in here. I am. It seems like it's only by a thread, but I hold the position as Darius's older / big brother. But now with the addition of a PhD, I don't know if I'm actually, I've just been demoted right now, somehow, some way. So, but and then when I actually listened to the information in the PhD, which he and I have actually had conversations as he's navigated through this process, and we've talked about these different concepts and things, and something, Darius, and that I think is quite significant is, as we look at the narrative, we look at the story, we look at the background of the history, and I look and think about what it is that you've had to overcome, what we both have had to overcome,
Yes.
particularly when it comes to, for instance, fathering or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that individuals that have grown up without consistent present fathering struggle with identity, because they didn't necessarily have someone to help them discover that, to help first give them some sort of a structure to come into, and a foundation and a belief system. And so it's interesting, because the conversations that me and you, everybody that he and I have had, as we and I try to figure out how to be fathers. I have 2 children, he has 4. And as we come together at time to time, and it's like, bro, I lost my whatever, and I feel like I'm the worst dad ever, and I'm licking my wounds. And maybe one time he's like, man, bro, you can't even, I don't even, you think you did bad. Look at what I'm telling you what I just did. And we're comparing, and we're trying to figure this thing out. And as I listened to the research and the information that you gave and the concepts, and I just started, and I connect, and immediately that issue of fathering came up. And then clearly the messaging that I feel like I got from you is that we cannot allow ourselves to become hypnotized. We cannot allow ourselves to become hijacked. We cannot allow ourselves to almost without even knowing it, drift into a place because we keep pulling up these platforms and looking at this information and looking at these people's presentations. And they're giving us some sort of a concept of what success is, or what it
Right.
means to be an adult, or what it means to be professional, or whatever it is. And we're looking
Right.
at that and looking at our own lives and saying, well, I don't have that and I'm not doing that, so I must not
Right.
be that.
There you go. That's it.
And so then I now take this and realize with my children, and I'm talking to my son who's 17, getting ready to go into his senior year, and saying, okay, we've got basketball recruiting and stuff like that. So having your social media up and running is a positive support system for that. But I now coming through this information that we've talked about before, and even this presentation, and reminded that I got to tell him and remind and encourage him, don't
Right.
get on this Facebook and this Instagram and let these people make you think you ain't nothing,
Right.
because they
Right.
look a certain way and they don't show you what the setbacks and the difficulties and the reality. They just give a certain perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
so how I father and how I continue to learn to be a father is incredibly impacted by what you're doing. And I'm thankful that we get to have ongoing conversations. And even after you're Mr. Dr. Darius Frasure, which is funny because every time he calls me, I answer the phone and I'm like, Your Grace, and he'll say something equally back to me. But now I've got to be Dr. Your Grace, but it's like I'm so humbled and honored to be in your presence, sir.
There you go,
You
Darius.
know,
It's just like if you can affect your brother to that degree, you've got a good step up on things. Thank you very much, man.
Congratulations on what you did, sir. Salute you, proud of you on behalf of our entire family, including my mom, who's right here,
Hey.
Mom Gloria, and so proud of you. And even you know, uh, all the others that are in heaven, we salute you and
Yes.
celebrate you, and we hold you up as an example, and I hold you up to my own children and say, this is something that you can do. Look at what my brother did. He's a literal earned, not honorary, but an earned doctor. And to be honest with you, brother, you putting pressure on me. I really need you to kind of ease up. You really got. I gotta. I got a bachelor's. All I got is a bachelor's. You making it hard on the brother out here in these streets. But you know what? Please keep doing it. Please
Thank you,
keep
sir.
doing you. And please, if you're gonna get 2 more doctorates or write 5 more books or start 3 more companies, I'm in your corner and I support you in everything that you do. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Darius,
Lisa or Doctor, yeah, go ahead, Lisa, and then Jenny.
Can't hear you, Lisa. Your audio is not so good to see you. Lisa Smith is phenomenal.
fail to get your
There you are.
speakers. No,
Now you're good.
There you are.
no, the audio is bad.
There. You coming through now. We can hear you.
I'm coming through now. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I was interested to know your early work that you did at Carter, working with all of those young men and young women from South Dallas, and the work you did through Creative Solutions, working with all of those young people in that were in the juvenile detention. How did that impact your your foundations in your research? Now go off now.
Yeah, it definitely, it gave me the kind of, what we say in the academy is that praxis, right? And it was before, of course, I got, things aligned, and I met Dr. Mink at NISOD that fateful day, and got into it on this journey. But there, when we talk about this journey, it's ongoing, and really that curation of the awareness of what's going on. So much of what I did was birthed of necessity of what I saw, the lack in the story, right? If you went to Carter High School, Dallas Carter High School, a lot of you might know about it in the culture. There have been movies and TV shows and series made about this school, the football team. And it's like, oh, you're a football player. And if you weren't a football player, then what are you doing here? And so the identities of so many of those young people there, and growing up in Tucson, Arizona, most of my life, and having been 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, lived in the Philippines, and moving around and always being a new kid, and being one of 18 Black students at high school. That was the last kind of experience. But even coming to Dallas and going to a historically black college, that was also out of pocket. That was a culture shock. It's like, okay, and then it's not just one kind of black person. There's African and there's Bohemian, and there's, you know, the diversity, right? Is is astounding. So I saw so much of what really, you know, I distilled it to exposure and opportunity, right? And again, you know, the church I used to attend, Concord, Dr. E.K. Bailey, you know, late pastor, he would grab the mic and he would say, reclaiming the village. And then the church would say, reclaiming the village. And it's just like those seeds, you know, the fruit that you, and I honor that presence right there.
All right.
The fruit, the seeds are planted in one season and you taste the fruit in another season. And so, and a lot of that, you know, the seeds are covered in darkness, right? They're in the dirt, and you throw water on the dirt and you do this work and you know that you're doing something, and later it will be something. You have that vision and that hope. And so, yeah, that work that I did at Carter, it was really, you know, my brother Will Witchy says, I'm searching for me, right? So when it comes to doing my coaching work, right, and, you know, define your niche and who, you know, that it's like, I'm really looking for myself first and foremost, right? That young Black man that is out of pocket, is out of joint. And everybody who feels that is a part of who it is that I'm searching for. And so, but there's not a whole lot of noise in between that. There's not a whole lot of translation and explaining and translating when I could say I'm looking for myself. So I saw myself in the lives of so many of those students, and I couldn't just go home and watch TV, right? Like, nah, we're gonna, you know, let's take these young people who are, you know, they don't have a safe place. So let's be a safe place for them. And that's really what attracted them. And so again, community.
Dr. Edwards.
Just want, we connected early on in your field and career, Darius, and it's
Yes.
a privilege and a pleasure. And I just saw W. Sweet posted, looking forward to seeing how God uses you going forward. And you are going to be impacting the lives of many people. And I just want to extend my congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Jeremy.
I just want to just say a few words.
Hey, Auntie.
I am so immensely proud of my nephew, Dr. Darius. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that I understand this journey of where you came from and how it could have taken so many different paths.
Oh,
but
man.
you took it upon yourself to find yourself. And you're looking at other people along your way. You impacted so many lives of young people that I am so immensely proud of you, who you become. And as a fellow educator, I understand how it really, really makes a difference when you're looking at every individual young person as someone of value, and that whole idea of reclaiming what was lost. And looking at when you're dealing with certain people that say, oh, this is where you are, this is where I foresee your future, and you completely switch that script. That is something that every single person, and I like how you included the female version of all of this in your research, because it impacts every single one of us. And to let everybody know their worth, their value, and that they can write that whole path of where you're going. And I applaud you. I definitely am looking forward to everything you're going to be doing in the future. And I just love you.
Love you too. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy and then Will. You both have asked us to talk. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Dr. Darius, deep thought, Frasure.
What's up, bro?
I've had the privilege of watching you for the last 2.5 decades of my life, and have had front row seats to
yeah,
this thing,
right
man. I'm proud of you. When we met, we didn't have beards. We didn't have gray. I had hair. I thought I was doing something when I got my master's degree, and then you went and got 3, right? Then on top of that, you got a doctorate. And so you've always operated in the multiverse. And I'm humbled. I'm honored. I'm thankful to be a part of your village. Like all of us, I think on the call, we can all say we can't wait to see what you do next.
Love you, bro.
Go get him. Likewise.
Will. Will, are you still on? Will Ritchie?
You muted, sir.
You're muted.
Careful there, man. I see Jeff while Will is getting himself together. Dr. Grimes.
Darius, congratulations. On behalf of all of your colleagues who've been working with you so closely at Mountain View for all of these years together, it's just wonderful to be able to share this with you, and we appreciate the invitation to come in. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Will's got his mute off, and
All right.
drive safely, Will.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
All right. My apologies. I am that one guy driving in a car down the highway that they say you're not supposed to do on Zoom. And here we are. Look, I've been pretty emotional during this entire presentation. I haven't known you as long as Jay Quinn, but a little over 2 decades. And for everyone out there, before email signatures were automatic, this guy had a signature. His email signature said at the bottom of every email that I know he typed manually, "True sight is not in sight, but insight." And I couldn't believe he could put so much in one line. And here we are 20 years later, watching him do his PhD presentation. Darius, you're one of my best friends. I've told you that a million times. In our work in this trauma-informed educational space, not only do we do the work, but we're a part of the work, and you've helped me through our family's addiction issues, our family's mental health issues. We've celebrated our babies together in the hospital when our babies were born, at baptisms. I was there, with you, the night your brother passed, and you were there for me when my mom passed to cardiac arrest. And for all the in between the lines that everybody on this phone call, where they've known you just for this semester or for the last 20 years, obviously Maurice is there, your mom, your aunt, man, just so proud of you. Keep on keeping on. And I'm just so proud that everyone here has got to experience you. I used to have a joke with Darius back in the day when it was only MySpace. And I'm half Puerto Rican, so take this to heart. I said, Darius, you need more friends who are Latino, white, and other than African-American. And Darius said, I got them. And I go, the way you speak to me and my family, the way you're an uncle for my kids, I hope that your life and your journey takes you to a place where your spirit transcends your skin color, your background, and man, you've done extraordinary work. Thank you for touching us all.
Love you, bro.
Love you, bro.
Anybody else? There's
I'd like to just say a couple of things. I can't, Darius,
Hey, Doc.
hi, you're such a connector. It's so incredible to see all these people here. And when I was listening to your incredible presentation, it brought me back to when we first started the program. The first night of the program was with, Jenny, we were on the thing, and it was January 6th, 2021, right? That
Dun,
night.
dun, dun.
And we carried on with the class, and I remember being in so many breakout rooms with you, and you were just blowing my mind left and right, and you were very pivotal in kind of helping me narrow down some of my ideas, and we had these really amazing talks and everything, and it's just so incredible to see this work come to this place. And I got the opportunity to meet you in Dallas and meet your daughter, and I can't wait to continue to collaborate with you on this really critical work. I just think you're an incredible human. And you know, when I got on this call, I'm like, there's 50 people here. Of course there is. This is it's Darius. And I'm so happy for you. I just really wanted to say that. I'm so happy for you. And I can't wait to continue to collaborate and to see what you're going to do. It's like, you know, it's just getting started.
Thank you.
I would like to jump in before everybody dismisses Dr. Frasure. I'd like to acknowledge being
Miss Mo.
being part of your journey, and I'd love to see this work in Dallas, Carter, and other schools, and breaking those generational curses that just as you have. And I'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Frasure, because I know that behind that strong man is a stronger woman, and God,
smarter too.
You're brilliant. And I was very emotional listening to this, because somatic work and spiritual pathways and processes happen in every part of your life. And so for you to bring this to codify this into work, I'm just in awe of you, and God bless you.
Thank you. That was my mentor teacher.
I want to jump in, Dr. Frasure.
What's up, man?
Man, what a privilege it is to be able to be a part of this process and to hear you share. Darius was one of the first people that I met almost 25 years ago when we walked onto the campus of Paul Quinn College. And Darius and another one of our good friends started a Bible study. And for about 2 weeks, we studied the first 2 verses of Genesis chapter 1. And a lot of that was built on just Darius wanting to dig in deeper and deeper and deeper. And he has been a scholar for many years. What really excites me about you is what you've already contributed. Many people won't even touch in a lifetime. And for you, it's just the beginning. And so I just want to say 2 of the most important words in the world are thank and you. Thank you for being a brother. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for your scholarship. Thank you for the way that you live life and move throughout this world. And I am excited, man, to be a part of this journey. In any way that I can support, please let me know. Congratulations, Dr. Frasure.
Thank you, bro.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir. You got bumps?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Harad.
Right. So I'm only saying something publicly because our other friends have shamed me into doing so. Marlon and Jeremy and Will. But yeah, just like everybody else, Darius, when we was in college, used to knock on my door and tell me about Jesus. He was the first. And I always would open the door for him, even though I wasn't of that religion at that time. But bro, just thank you so much. I'm always inspired by you, your work ethic, the multiple degrees that you got. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, dang, I need to convince my wife now that I need to go get a doctorate. But thank you so much, man, for inviting me to this. And I just want to echo everything that everybody else has said in multiple and various ways. Yeah, I'm just happy to be on this journey with you. And thank you for always showing up in my life. I really, really appreciate that. And congrats.
Yeah. Love you, bro.
You too, man.
Dr. Frasure.
Who that? Hey, ¿qué onda? What's up?
Congratulations, Dr. Frasure. I love you, man.
Love you too. Dr.
Yes,
Barker. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Congrats.
Yeah, we're gonna run it.
Okay, is anyone else? Dr. Henderson, I thought I saw you start to say something.
Oh, that's just my epilepsy.
Okay. All right, well, we're coming to the
Can I say
bottom.
something real quick?
Yeah, who that?
It's what's good, friends?
It's
What's up,
Teddy.
Xavier? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry I can't get my camera to work. I'm using my
That's all
work
right.
laptop.
Yeah.
But man, well, I just want to start off by saying congratulations, Dr. Fraz. Man, I'm an educator today because of you.
Yeah.
Right now I'm currently in my car outside of work. I teach in Malaysia because of you. You know, growing up as a young Black boy without a Black father present, you tend to look for father figures. Unfortunately, in our community, it's not many positives that you see. You know, as you pointed out, you know, we look towards the music, the movies, and you know, and how we're portrayed in the media. It was such a blessing to have the rarity of a Black teacher, Black male teacher, teach us and show me that it was okay to be brilliant.
Yeah.
It was okay. I didn't have to be a thug. I didn't have to. Excuse me. Now I'm glad my camera doesn't work.
I feel you, man.
I didn't have to be a thug. I didn't have to be the best athlete in the world, anything like that. It was okay that I could sing. It was okay that I did poetry in the dark, you know,
Yeah.
and nobody would have ever heard it if it wasn't for you and creating Lit Society. You know, the company that I have now, Vibe Village, is kind of based off of Lit Society. You're an amazing human being. Shout out to Lady Fraz. She's amazing. Support and Queen behind you. Thank you for all that you do and all that you continue to do. Man. And for some reason, it's like, I know this is not it for you. You know, you just continue. Every time I thank you, you know, just done it all. You do something else. You know, so thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for all that you do, all that you continue to do. And I wish you strength and positivity and much success.
Appreciate you, nephew. You can be Teddy sometimes.
Is this a former Carter student?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Many moons ago.
Yeah.
He got an angel jammed in his throat too. He sings so beautiful.
Dr. Frasure.
What's up? Who that? Oh, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? Just want to say congratulations, Dr. Frasure. All the work that you've been doing, the many years that I've known you, meeting you in college, going inside the prison systems, the school systems doing poetry, the mentorship, just the relationship we've had over the years, your beautiful wife and children that you are always instilling knowledge in. I always admire, you know, your work as a father. And just seeing, you know, the things that you're producing, publishing. I just want to say congratulations, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you continue to go up heights, to challenge the norms and break barriers. And like I say, congratulations on all of your work that you're doing today. And today was an incredible thing just to witness this.
Love you, bro.
Absolutely love you too.
Hey, Dr. Frasure, how you doing, my brother?
Hey, what's up, Sergeant?
Man, listen, I just wanted to say, man, I appreciate you for authentically being yourself, man, and that really showed that they, with your presentation, man, the work that you've done, the conversations that we've had, man, you have always been an inspiration from the very moment, my brother, since I've had the opportunity to connect with you, man. The things that God is leading you to do, the things that God is inspiring you to do, man, you are truly blazing a trail when it comes to the work that you're doing and the people that will benefit from that. Man, I just wanted to take a moment to honor you, my brother, you know what I'm saying, giving all glory and honor to our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ, man, and you know what I'm saying, what it is that he's inspired you to become, my brother, you know what I'm saying. Myself and the wife and the family, we love you beyond measure. You know what I'm saying? Thank you to my sister, you know what I'm saying, for sharing my brother with us and you know what I'm saying, making him available And man, listen, everything that everybody is, launched at you on this day, congratulating you, man, is well deserved, my brother. So, man, listen, continue to move forward doing the things that you're doing. Continue to serve as an inspiration, my brother. And I just look forward to what it is that God is getting ready to do next in your life, man. Love you beyond measure, my brother.
Love you, sir. Thank you.
And we also have a lot of comments that are in the chat box that you'll be able to read when you get the recording, Darius. So I just want to close in a way that I cannot do in English. So I'm just going to close with
Thank you.
Really support what you say, and then we'll
Yes, sir.
call it a night. Please join me in talking about to the great mysterious forces, how we can implement this balancing and remembering who we are. Otunkashila wakantanka nama kompa na te tewa topa unshimaka hitu ayankelo. Oyate oya se unshi wichalapona oichaki apo hecho wichozani washte uniwa pigtail. Oyate oya sin shanku luto och namani. Hetuke shineke Frasure. Ona oyate waka. Ihani la kowi choaki tunkashi le kiksui. Metako ye oyase. We're all related. Thank you for everyone being here.
Thank you. Thank you all.